I knew something was wrong the second the elevator doors slid open and those two got on. Karen from HR and my project lead, Jason, both with that smug end-of-quarter strut like they'd just reinvented the Agile manifesto. I was already tucked in the back corner, hoodie up, earbuds in but nothing playing. Just wanted the ride down in peace. Then Jason opened his mouth. "She's brilliant, no doubt," he said, chuckling. "But once she finishes the module, we cut her loose. Bring in someone cheaper. Hell, maybe even that intern. What's her name, Brielle?" Karen laughed, one of those nasal corporate giggles that always sounded like it ended with a pink slip. "Don't say that so loud," she hissed, but she wasn't really warning him. She was enjoying it. "She'll be fine. Resume like hers? She'll bounce." I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared at the glowing floor number above the door while my pulse did gymnastics in my throat. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how it happens. Not with a meeting or an email, but with two snakes shedding their conscience on the way to valet. By the time we hit the ground floor, I had mapped the next 3 weeks of my life with more precision than the last 5 sprints combined. And just before I stepped off, Jason, without a clue I'd been there, said, "She'll never see it coming." If you're still listening, hey, quick thing. 97% of people never subscribe or like these videos, but it really fuels the team when you do. So if this hit a nerve, give it a tap. That's how more stories like this reach you. I walked out into the parking garage like I always did, slow, steady, same steps, same keys in the same right pocket. But my mind was gone. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was cold. Like bone deep, frostbite in the soul cold. The kind you only get when someone decides you're disposable. Like you're a damn printer cartridge. Used till empty, then swap out for a shiny new model. What they didn't know, what none of them ever cared to learn, is that I built that module from the ground up. Not with their stupid templates or out-of-box plugins. I built it clean, modular, extensible. They thought I was just some mid-career dev lucky to still be employed in a sea of 20-something code ninjas and Gen Z bootcamp prodigies. But I was the architecture, the skeleton, the damn circulatory system of that platform. And they just decided to amputate me like a hangnail. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. That night, I went home, fed my cat, poured a glass of wine, and opened my laptop. Then I did what they never thought I would. I cloned the entire repo to my private machine. Every line, every ticket, every version comment that mattered. And I started building again, not what they asked for, but what they needed. The version that made their entire product roadmap look like a toddler's crayon sketch. Same bones, different soul. By midnight, the foundation was laid. Not a sabotage. Not a heist. Just a quiet reclamation. They could keep their copy. I was building the original. I walked into the office Monday morning like nothing happened. Smiled at security. Grabbed my usual burnt coffee from the break room. Nodded at Jason like I hadn't just heard him plan my corporate execution in an elevator. He smiled back. One of those practiced grins that never touched his eyes. I sat down at my desk, opened my terminal, and began my final act. Not a tantrum. Not revenge. A blueprint. First thing I did was initiate a clean clone. Not a copy-paste job. A full, structured import to a private repo I'd spun up under my LLC. Established 3 years ago when I got tired of pretending corporate loyalty was a two-way street. The moment that repo was live, I was free. I still had a badge. Still had Slack access. Still got invited to stand-ups. But mentally, I was already gone. All they saw was a ghost in a hoodie still pushing commits. Every morning, I'd log into the company Git like nothing was off. Sprinkle in a few bug fixes, toss a doc update into the wiki, maybe push a unit test that was already obsolete. Keep the lights on, keep appearances polished. Meanwhile, at night, I was building the thing they were too dumb or arrogant to ask for. My fork wasn't just functional. It was scalable, elegant, auditable. Something that didn't just work, but lasted. I rewrote the authentication layer first. Their version had duct-taped middleware from 2018 and 3 security holes big enough to drive a breach through. I made mine stateless, tokenized, and easily portable. While they patted themselves on the back for getting a test case to pass, I had an entire QA suite simulating production-level abuse in the cloud. Jason, bless his clueless little PM heart, started assigning my tickets to junior devs. Mentoring opportunities, he called them. I didn't push back. I even helped rewrite a few of their commits so they'd pass review. All the while I watched the wheels on their train wobble harder every day. They had no idea what they were sitting on, or what they were losing. Every time they merged something into the main branch, I'd make a note of what broke, what they thought they'd fixed, and how deep the rot really went. Their module tree was collapsing under its own weight. Mine. Modular. Documented. Container ready. Sometimes I'd sit back and stare at their Slack messages, snarky little comments about how legacy code needed to make room for agile thinking, or we can probably deprecate her logic soon. They had no clue I'd already deprecated them from my mental roadmap. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even disappointed. I was surgical. They were trying to replace me with cheaper code and fresher faces. I was replacing them with a better future. One line at a time. Jason called it the final sprint, like we were all supposed to high-five and order pizza. Like this wasn't the same module I architected from scratch while he was too busy fumbling Jira filters and quoting Steve Jobs to realize he was gutting the only part of the platform that actually worked. Everyone needs to step up this week, he said during the Monday morning sync, flashing that smug TED Talk smile. Big demo Friday. Let's show leadership what we've got. Translation. Let's milk the last useful code out of her before we cut her loose and pretend the intern wrote it. He didn't assign me a single ticket. Not one. My name was missing from the board entirely. Not even a test or doc pass. But he didn't pull access. That was his mistake. I could have raised a flag. Could have asked why I was suddenly invisible in my own project. But I didn't. I just smiled, said sounds good, and muted the call. They wanted plausible deniability. They were about to get it. In my repo, the module was done. Fully built, fully functional, optimized, annotated, CI tested across 4 deployment scenarios. I even made the documentation idiot-proof, because if Jason planned to hand this off to someone else, I wanted to make sure they understood just how far behind they were starting from. Meanwhile, in the company repo, I gave them exactly what they deserved. 2 commits behind. Regression issues logged, ignored, and tagged minor. I kept the API stable enough to pass a shallow review, but just brittle enough to snap under real-world use. I labeled the final push ready_for_review_v1.3 and let it marinate like expired sushi in the freezer. They wouldn't know it was rotten until they took a bite. On Thursday night, I pushed my last commit and logged off. I stared at the timestamp for a second, 11:47 p.m. Fitting. Like the last minute before midnight, before it all turns into a pumpkin patch of broken features and missing logic. Then I closed my laptop and finally allowed myself to feel it. Not sadness. Not even rage. Just distance. The kind of clean emotional void you get when you finally stop pretending you matter to people who only ever saw you as a function call. I was done debugging their egos. I was done patching over their incompetence like it was technical debt. I had built something better somewhere else. And soon the world would see it. Friday morning, I walked into that office like it was any other day. No fanfare. No speeches. Just quiet. My desk was still mine. My chair still squeaked. The hallway still smelled like overbaked optimism and recycled betrayal. But inside, I wasn't there anymore. They just didn't know it yet. Friday morning, 9:01 a.m. Calendar invite says Sprint Retro Plus Final Review. I log in, camera off, coffee in hand. Slack's buzzing like a bee with a grudge. Jason's already blathering about how the team really came together. And Karen from HR, oh surprise, has just popped in to observe. Right. Because HR always crashes sprint reviews for the sheer love of burn-down charts. I already knew what was coming. They were so damn predictable, I could have set my watch by their betrayal. Jason cleared his throat in that self-important way of his. Before we get into review items, just a quick announcement. Pause. Dramatic for no reason. Effective today will be parting ways with my name. Her contributions have been appreciated, but we're heading in a new direction. Let's all wish her the best. Karen smiled like she was handing out cookies at a funeral. Thank you for everything. Really? I unmuted, said one word. Got it. Then I logged off. Didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't offer some saccharin. I've loved working with you all. That moment wasn't an end. It was a timestamp. The beginning of their unraveling, whether they knew it or not. You see, there was one core dependency, just one, that I wrote myself. A small, seemingly boring backend microservice that authenticated inter-service handoffs. Tiny footprint. Big consequence. I didn't leave it broken. I left it brittle. Configured to time out under very specific load conditions tied to the demo environment. And only I knew the workaround. Not malicious. Just overlooked. Just like me. I walked out of that meeting and into the rest of my damn life. First thing I did was open my laptop. Not the company-issued brick. They could keep that. But my real machine. My repo was waiting. Clean. Modular. Ready. I registered a new domain. Set up a sleek front page. Wrote a plain-spoken README that actually explained how the damn system worked. No jargon, no fluff. Just code and clarity. The kind of thing I wished I'd had when I joined their mess 2 years ago. Then I forked the platform publicly. Renamed it. Refactored the namespace. Gave it a new identity. By Saturday afternoon, my project had a name, a logo, and a growing list of stars from indie devs who saw the difference immediately. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't asking for a seat at the table. I built the table. Sunday morning, I brewed my coffee, pulled up GitHub, and watched someone from Berlin fork the repo. Then someone from Austin. Then Chicago. No ad campaign. No press release. Just clean working code, freely offered. They thought they were firing a developer. What they really did was light the fuse. Monday morning, 10:03 a.m. Their big internal demo. Full executive attendance. The kind of Zoom call where everyone pretends they aren't sweating through their collared shirts while praying the screen share doesn't freeze. The CTO had just introduced the new module, my module, with the smug certainty of a man who believed he was about to present innovation instead of a Frankenstein stitched together from stale commits and office politics. Then the screen went black. Not metaphorically. Literally. The loading screen spun like it was waiting on divine intervention. Then crash. Not a graceful fail. Not a handled exception. A full stop, stack trace dump, kill the process crash. One click. Total combustion. I didn't see it live, of course. I just got the play-by-play from a former teammate, Sarah, one of the few decent engineers still left. She texted me one word. Glorious. Then sent a screenshot of the error log. There it was, bold as day. Fatal. Module init key undefined. The same key I'd built. The same key I'd rotated out during the final push. The same key no one else knew how to regenerate or configure properly. Without it, the module wouldn't boot. With it, everything worked seamlessly. But that key was never pushed to their repo. I had left them the shell, not the engine. Inside their Slack, I imagined the meltdown. Devs scrambling, fingers flying, tabs open across 6 monitors. Jason blaming someone else. The CTO, fuming silently while pretending it's all fine. Probably just a misconfig, he reportedly muttered. Of course. It always is. Until it isn't. Meanwhile, across the internet, my fork was humming. Clean launches. Full functionality. Real documentation. No black box. No legacy bloat. Just a system that did what it said it would do. Around noon, I noticed the first star on my GitHub repo from an unexpected name. It was Max, the intern. The same intern Jason said might replace me. The same intern who once stayed late to ask me how our load balancer logic worked. I remembered his face, pale and quiet, during that Friday meeting. He hadn't clapped. He hadn't said a word. Now he'd starred my project. Then Sarah did. Then Jamal, the one backend dev who actually read error logs before meetings. Then 10 more. Each name was a nail not in my coffin but in theirs. I didn't message anyone. Didn't post some grand told you so thread. I just refreshed the page. Watched the repo climb. By the end of the day, 37 stars. 8 forks. 2 pull requests. And 1 short message sitting quietly in my inbox. Hey, are you open to freelance work? We want to build on top of your version. That was the moment it shifted. Not just a failed demo. Not just a repo fork, but the beginning of their end. And my beginning. By Friday, the echo had turned into a ripple, and the ripple into a quiet, undeniable wave. It started small. A mention in a niche Slack group for open source devs. Someone dropped my repo link with a casual, "This is what that other platform should have been." No drama. No hashtags. Just code speaking for itself. Then someone posted a benchmark. Then someone else ran their own test and confirmed it. My fork ran 42% faster under heavy load and used 30% less memory out of the box. Documentation? Bulletproof. I didn't just dump code and hope for adoption. I wrote walkthroughs, diagrams, plain English guides that didn't require a PhD in Stack Overflow archaeology. I offered migration instructions with real-world examples, line-by-line comparisons showing how clean the swap would be. I even added a one-click deploy button. By Wednesday, small dev shops started jumping ship. Not loudly, just drifting over. Quiet commits to my repo. Forks with names like Acme Toolchain XD and Modular Starter Pack. One shop from Toronto posted a tweet. Migrated to at her fork in under 3 hours. Faster, cleaner, documented. Never going back. Then the first donation hit. $10. From a guy in Finland who wrote, "Saved me a week of debugging, here's coffee." I grinned, took a screenshot, and framed it in my mind. Not for the money. For the proof. I wasn't dead weight. I was the weight they couldn't carry. Later that afternoon, a real email landed. Subject: Consulting opportunity. Body: We're planning to build a custom plugin for your framework. Do you offer services? No begging. No groveling. Just clean interest, clean money, clean respect. That night, I registered the LLC's domain name and spun up the site. White background. Soft serif font. Clean UI. 3-tier pricing, starter. Scale. Custom. I embedded the GitHub stats right on the homepage. No bloated BIOS. No stock photos of smiling people high-fiving by glass walls. Just this. Fast. Modular. Yours. I added a mailing list. Sent the first update. Version 1.1 released. Patch notes written like a real person, not a release bot. Clear, helpful human. By the time I woke up Friday, the stars had tripled. A post hit the front page of DevTalk. If you're still using old company tool, switch to this fork instead. I didn't write it. Some stranger did. And the comments? Been running it all week, solid as hell. Documentation actually makes sense for once. Can't believe they let her go. That last one? I pinned it in my head. Wore it like armor. Because this wasn't noise anymore. This was gravity shifting. They fired me to save a salary. I replaced their roadmap. By the following Monday, Fear had found a new address. And it wasn't mine anymore. Inside the old company, the silence broke like glass under pressure. Sales calls that used to be clockwork started missing their marks. Follow-ups got delayed. Prospects went cold without explanation. Then came the question that kept popping up like a glitch in their CRM. Does your product support the open fork? The first time, the sales rep stuttered. Played dumb. I'm sorry, which fork are you referring to? By the third call that morning, Jason finally noticed. He ran a search, probably out of sheer annoyance, and found my repo, front page, trending under open source business tools. Stared at the README, saw his own architecture stripped down, improved, polished, and loved by strangers. He stormed into the CTO's office, red-faced and rambling, waving printed screenshots like a man catching smoke. I know this because Sarah recorded the aftermath on her phone. No audio, just a 6-second clip of Jason pacing while the CTO sat motionless, jaw clenched. What do you mean this wasn't protected? The CTO snapped, loud enough that even the interns in UX stopped pretending to work. Jason tried to deflect. She worked on it during work hours. She cloned the repo, shouldn't we have some claim? CTO pulled up the logs. My access record. The timestamps. The final commits. Then the kicker. My resignation email, time-stamped and polite, with no mention of the independent fork. Because I never used their IP. I rewrote it from scratch. My clone? It wasn't just a mirror. It was a blueprint. And I'd rebuilt it legally, cleanly, under a different license. On a machine that was mine. On hours they never paid me for. Legal was pulled in. They did what legal does. Panicked quietly while pretending not to. Someone must have printed my LLC registration. Another brought up the NDA. They flipped through it like it held a secret clause that might save them from the storm they had summoned. But it didn't. Because the NDA was standard. No clause about exclusivity. No mention of post-employment IP claims. No non-compete, because they never saw me as a threat. They saw me as a ghost in a hoodie. Typing quietly in the corner, one refactor away from redundancy. Now they were staring at a repo that had more traction in 1 week than their entire platform had gained in 3 quarters. I wasn't breaking the rules. I was the product of them. Across town, I refreshed my site stats. Another new subscriber. A request for enterprise pricing. My phone buzzed, an old client contact asking if I had time to chat about migration. I sipped my coffee. Didn't smile. Didn't gloat. I didn't have to. Fear had changed hands. The crack didn't come from a lawsuit or a headline. It came from a 12-word email sent to the wrong inbox. Subject: Migration Timeline. Body: We've decided to move forward with her fork as our long-term platform. It landed in the CTO's inbox with a CC to sales, but the kicker? Someone in sales forwarded it to Jason without checking the thread. Jason, of course, panicked and replied all. Classic move. Are you kidding me? That's our second biggest client. That email got screenshotted faster than you could say oops. By lunchtime, the entire engineering floor had seen it. Sarah sent me a copy. Just the screenshot. No caption. Didn't need one. That client, an enterprise healthcare SaaS firm, was the one they built their Q4 projections around. It wasn't just a deal. It was the anchor that made their burn rate survivable. And now it was gone. Gone to a cleaner, faster, better documented fork maintained by the person they fired over Zoom without a thank you. By Wednesday, my inbox was chaos. Quiet, hungry chaos. Hey, if you're hiring, I'm interested. Do you need front-end help? Asking for a friend. I worked on the legacy code. Your fork is light years better. Respect. These weren't interns. These were mid-level and senior devs who had once walked past my desk without a word. Now they were sending resumes and GitHub profiles like prayers tossed over a fence. I didn't respond to most. Not out of spite. I just didn't need a team, yet. Thursday morning, the CTO held a crisis sync. Not an all hands. A backroom, camera on, panic-soaked huddle with legal, Jason, and the VP of product. I wasn't there, obviously, but I didn't have to be. The repo traffic spike said everything. Their product was stalling. Mine was trending. Their roadmap was a PowerPoint. Mine was live. Then the tweet hit. From one of their early investors. A guy who'd once given a keynote at their annual summit. Blue check, huge following, tight-lipped for months. Out of nowhere, he writes. Sometimes a company loses its way. Sometimes, someone builds what the industry actually needs. Shout out to her fork. If you're building, build on this. 30,000 likes in a day. Their Slack lit up. Their board called in. Their PR team ghosted. And over on DevTalk, my fork quietly got pinned as the default recommendation in a thread titled, Best Platform to Start With in 2025? That was the moment it tipped. Not a scream. Not a boom. Just gravity shifting. Their product wasn't bad. It was irrelevant. I didn't even refresh the thread. Didn't need to. I was already building the next version. It was raining. One of those stubborn Midwest drizzles that soaks your jeans from the knees down and makes the streetlights look like watercolor bleeding down the glass. I wasn't even planning to walk that route, but muscle memory took over. Same block. Same cracked sidewalk. Same beige building with flickering lights in the lobby that no one ever got around to fixing. I stopped under the awning across the street. Pulled my hood up. Watched. Inside, Jason was pacing across the floor of what used to be our project war room. Same too-tight shirt, same permanent squint like the world owed him clarity. He had a phone pressed to his ear, one hand flailing in disbelief like he was trying to slap the call into submission. Even from where I stood, I could see the panic. The kind of panic that doesn't come from one lost client, but from realizing they're not coming back. Behind him, the whiteboard was still cluttered with acronyms and timelines no one followed. Q2 OKRs still scrawled in red. Except now, the chairs were mostly empty. My phone buzzed. I didn't jump. Just pulled it out calmly, thumbed the screen. Subject: contract approved. Body: looking forward to onboarding with your system. Total budget: $250,000. Signed. I stared at the number for a second. Let it settle. Not because I needed the validation, but because sometimes you have to stop and absorb the moment when the future finally answers the insult of your past. I crossed the street, passed by their front door, didn't even glance inside. Just turned into the cafe next door, ordered a black coffee and grabbed a corner seat. Same spot I used to hide in during lunch breaks. Back when I still thought loyalty was a currency that paid dividends. I opened my laptop. The repo dashboard was open, waiting. Pinned at the top, her fork version 2.2. A new pull request sat in the queue. From a dev at one of their former partners. Of course it was. I merged it. Posted patch notes. Sipped the coffee, still steaming, still bitter, just how I like it. Then I closed the lid, leaned back, and watched the rain slide down the window like it was washing the old world away. I didn't burn the bridge. I just built the better one, right next to it.